Evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Tinley Park Plan Commission to order and begin with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we have roll call, please.
Croner,
Here.
Stanton,
Here.
Curran, Engel, Manning, Gatto,
Here.
Gray,
Here.
Augustiniak, Shaw.
Here. Okay, I do believe we have a quorum this evening. Any communications from staff? There's no public hearing this evening, so nothing to handle there. Excellent. So with that, Commissioner Gray has a statement he'd like to read.
And this will be for pertaining item number 1 for today's workshop, and that is pursuant to the Village Code of Ethics and after speaking with the village attorney, I am hereby disclosing that I have a conflict of interest on this item. I am a geotech engineer for Seco Consultants, and McDonald's USA LLC is a client of our company's, and my company may very well perform some work for this McDonald's site on 159th Street. As such, I will not be participating in any deliberation or vote on this petition here today.
Thank you. First item is approval of the minutes of the December 21st, 2017 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
One quick, I'm sorry, motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have any edits, comments, questions?
One quick edit on page 4 of 11 in the red, and this looks good, but including the Telecommunications Industry Association, it says standards plural. I think it just has to be singular standard because the standard is the TI 222-H, but it looks really good otherwise. And I believe that's also on another page 6 of 11, the same red type, so standards should be singular before the TI-22-H. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments or corrections on the minutes?
No.
Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes of the December 21st, 2017 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carried. Okay, before we move on to item 1, I do have to say I now have technical difficulties. This has logged itself out. I looked around to see if I was the only one. I am. I'm not entirely sure how that happened. We can, if it's okay, in the interest of time, we can proceed with the staff report if you'd like.
Sorry. I'm getting over the flu, so hopefully you guys can hear me all right and it's picking up okay on the microphone for everyone at home. Item number 1 tonight is a workshop for McDonald's. This is the location at about 159th and Harlem. Its address is 15920 Harlem Avenue. This is in the southwest corner of Harlem and 159th Street. In the Park Center Plaza Shopping Center. Some notable other tenants in that shopping center include Portillo's, the new Aldi store, there's a Charter Fitness, Fannie Mae's in there if you like to get your chocolates, plenty of good stores in there, and this is just to the west of the Portillo's. It's been there for quite some time, so I'm sure you've seen it or gone there before. Similar to the McDonald's at 17171 Harlem Avenue that we saw earlier this year, they are wanting to do an exterior remodel and also do some site improvements related to a double drive-through. So the trend nowadays is to have 2 ordering lanes so they can speed up the order creation process for the customers. And McDonald's can provide you with some facts about how that process works if you'd like. So what we're considering during this workshop tonight is discussion about site plan approval, a special use permit to allow the modification of the drive-through area with that site plan approval, also some extra signage, one additional wall sign in particular, a little bit larger sign. They're proposing those M's to be 6 inches larger than we allow by code. And then there's also some menu board signage that slightly exceeds the code that we need to consider. So as you saw in your staff report, there's a few open items we need to discuss tonight and hopefully get the petitioner some feedback for. Are we okay to proceed?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so here is the landscape plan in color. This is an easy view for you to see exactly what they're looking to do. And you can see here that double drive-through is off the northeast corner of the building there, where you see some landscape islands. Currently, there is landscaping in that area, so they don't have to remove any of the building. They just have to make some site modifications to the landscape area and the existing parking drive-through lane around that area. They will be doing some other great improvements to the site, including adding sidewalk so that you can actually have a connection from the sidewalk along 159th Street to the actual McDonald's building. That's along the west property line. And also they're going to be angling parking spaces on the site so that it better flows with a one-way traffic flow that would go counterclockwise around the building. This is the summary of open items. I'll go ahead and read these for you, just for some things to look out for as I talk about the petitioner's request. So they are looking for the Plan Commission to consider a substantial deviation from the Park Center Plaza planned unit development to modify the site plan to allow a second drive-through lane. Also, consideration for an exception for the number of required parking spaces. They are going to lose a couple parking spaces from what they currently have just due to the reconfiguration and that angling of parking. And number 3, the petitioner should consider modifying the landscape bed to the east of the north parking road to include the area adjacent to the angled parking space. Another one for the petitioner to note is number 4. Loose rock mulch is not an acceptable material for the outer landscape bed near the drive-through. They should revise the plans to reflect landscaping and plant material. If they cannot do the landscaping and plant material, sometimes we've got some turning radius issues with that type of thing. They should consider using granite cobbles or Belgian block set and mortar, and this is similar to what we recommended at the other McDonald's location earlier this year for the same scenario. Number 5, the Plan Commission may consider a substantial deviation from the Park Center Plaza planned unit development to allow 1 additional wall sign. 6, a substantial deviation to allow the M arch signs to be 36 inches tall, where we just allow 30 inches. And number 7, the petitioner should revise the height of the menu boards to meet the maximum height of 7 feet. They're currently 7.39 feet tall. If they're not able to do so, the Plan Commission could allow an exception for the height of the menu boards. So with that, I'll go through the images from your staff report quickly. And in the interest of time, if you'd like me to discuss anything further, feel free to stop me and we can ask questions and answer questions. Here's an aerial of the site with the site highlighted. Again, Portillo's is to the east of the property. 159th Street is to the north. Harlem Avenue is a little bit further east. And to the south is the parking lot that's in front of the, I believe, Just Shrimp and Wingstop and Aldi. This is the, south side of the building. Something I'd like for everyone to note really quickly here is the rooftop HVAC. That's something I made sure that the petitioner addressed in the future remodel, that we don't see those type of units anymore. It's also very prevalent on the north view from 159th Street that you see on the screen here. Looks like it could be part of the play place if you can get to it, but alas, it is a HVAC unit on the top there. I guess you really wouldn't want to play in it, probably.
Well, we can see if we can incorporate a slide or something.
Slide down from the roof. I like it. Here is a view of the east side of the building. This is part of the landscaped area that will be reduced as they make the double drive-through lane. They'll kind of cut the corner off here and come around the building. And here is the west side of the building where they have the drive-through lane currently. The zoning of the property is B3 PD, which is planned unit development. To the west, we have some R4, which is a church. Further west, there's more residential with other R districts. To the north is a commercial zoning district within the village of Orland Park. To the east, we have B2 PD, which is primarily the Tinley Park Plaza planned unit development, and then we also have another outlot building right at the corner where you have the Starbucks and the Potbelly. That one's called Tinley Square. Here is the black and white site plan. It's a little bit easier to see here with the color one. So again, you can see they are going to be doing some significant landscape improvements, especially where they are making that drive-through. They're trying to make up for some of the lost area with doing some nice planting beds. This has been reviewed by the village's landscape architect. And a couple of the suggestions that we have are expanding the landscape area. Just this little corner that you see here in the red triangle, we suggest that become landscaping just so that that parking space is kind of formalized with the angle there. It's kind of dead space otherwise. I guess it's nice if you don't like to park next to anyone and you want a wide door opening, but other than that, it doesn't really serve a purpose, and it could be a little extra green space. The other thing that we talked about was that rock mulch not allowed in this particular island that you see on your screen here. If at all possible, we'd like to see landscaping there that matches the other islands and the other plant materials on the site. If not, we would consider granite cobbles that are in mortar or Belgian block, something that's not a loose material, so when you drive over it, it's going to get all over the parking lot. We also don't want to see something that's going to have a bunch of mud or anything that's going to be a maintenance issue. Here are some comparisons of the elevations, the existing versus the proposed. Here's that north elevation, and you can see here there's screening around the HVAC units, so you will not be able to see those from the right-of-way. You'll see a screen that's complementary to the materials that they're using on the building. I believe it's a metal or aluminum screen, if I'm correct. And they're going to be painting the new facade a gray color, and they'll have some brick accents. The signage will actually be reduced, and we'll talk about that more in a second here, but you can see there's not nearly as much signage as on the current building. Here is the south elevation, again modernized with that sort of gray color scheme. Since it is a 2D elevation and not a 3D rendering, it looks a little flat, but there are some projections with the different awnings coming out from the building near the entrances. And here's the east elevation, again going with that same gray theme. And the west elevation. And there are some yellow awnings that project out over the drive-through windows here as well. Speaking of signage, the top of the screen here, you can see some images of the existing signage. They have actually 42-inch tall M letters, I believe, and 51-inch tall M letters, and that older-looking Play Place sign with the M's on either side. And the bottom of the screen is the proposed wall signage. It has a little bit smaller M's that are 36 inches tall, and then you've got the word Play Place and McDonald's. And the tables that you see here, the first one is comparing what's allowed by village code based and then against what is proposed. So they're looking for one more sign than what's allowed. All of their area meets code. It's actually quite a bit less than what the code allows. And then just that M is 6 inches taller than we allow by code. So you can see those are those numbers in the red in the first table there. The second table compares the existing signage to the proposed, just to give you some perspective on the decrease in signage that they have here. They're going to have 6 less wall signs, about 100 square feet less of sign face area, and their maximum letter height actually goes down 15 inches. So while they are asking for a little bit extra than what we allow by code, they're significantly reducing what's actually on the building today. Something to consider with those exception requests and the substantial deviation for the additional signage. And here are pictures of the proposed menu boards. Again, these are 0.39 feet taller than what we allow by code, which is 7 feet. The sign face area for these is, again, much smaller than what we allow by code, so that's something to consider as well. And they will have one of these menu boards, one single and one double in each drive-through lane. So there's actually going to be two of the one on the left and two of the one on the right at the site. And with that, I'll leave you with the summary of open items. If you'd like to discuss any of these or go back to any of the photos or go over anything else in the staff report, I'd be happy to discuss those.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate it. I think we will pretty much just go round robin here. Start down at the end. Commissioner Stanton, if you have any questions. I realize there's a lot of open points here, so
Right.
we can come back around again
Yeah.
if something pops
Yeah,
up.
I'm good right now.
Okay.
Good right now until the petitioner comes in.
Okay, excellent. I just wanted to ask one question on the sign. We're saying .39. I think that's almost 5 inches, 4.5 inches or so.
Yeah.
That's measured from where? Is it from the top of the concrete footing, or from
Yes,
from the finished pavement? Or?
Let me double check on that.
I just want to make, it's
I
a small
believe
amount,
in
so I just want to make sure that.
plans. Let me double check there. Yeah, do you know offhand where the height is measured?
I believe it's from the ground.
Okay. And in our code, we measure from grade to the top of the sign. So what we would want to know is where does that base sit on the ground?
Okay.
So,
We don't build it up
yeah,
artificially.
because we don't want you to have a 5-foot concrete base and then we measure.
Right.
So I believe when I put that dimension in there, it was from where the grade would be.
Okay, that's fair. That was the only question I had. We can hear from petitioners if.
But it also
But-
isn't really considered a true variance, because it's a PUD, we just look at it as an exception.
Right.
So that's real helpful.
Sorry, I didn't say variance. did I?
No, I just didn't know if you realized
Okay.
that.
Yeah, it's all part and parcel. It's one approval. Okay. So please come forward and let's, thank you for being here. Look forward to hearing your presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for coming out on a chilly night. My name is Jim Olguin. I'm the attorney for McDonald's. I do their zoning work. Also here with me this evening are Andrew Utan and Matt Vogel from V3. They're the project engineers, and I'm going to have Matt come up in a bit and kind of describe the site in a little bit more detail. In terms of a presentation, one of the difficult things of following Stephanie is that she pretty much hits all the highlights that I want to hit, and it makes things more easier for me. So I might take her to some other meetings as well. But the reason that we're here this evening is McDonald's is really trying to modernize a lot of its existing locations, and this particular location has been around for a while. It's in need of modernization, and McDonald's would like to reinvest in the site along with the operator. In terms of the request, we are looking for a dual drive-through. The main reason for that is efficiency. McDonald's can put 50% better efficiency through a dual drive-through than just a standard drive-through facility. So that really helps the customers, allows us to move folks in and out of the site a lot more efficiently and quicker. We are reducing signage considerably from what's presently there, and we think we're really enhancing the overall site, the overall building in just about every way. So with that, Matt, if you want to get into a little bit of the details on the site.
We brought a material board. If you guys would like to take a look at some of the materials, I can pass it around. The elevations are the same that Stephanie had shown in the presentation. But again, there's some materials that will be used for you to look at closer and see how the building will ultimately come out. Kind of like Jim said, unfortunately, I don't know if I have a ton to add because Stephanie did cover a lot of our highlighted points. And Jim mentioning the efficiency of the newer McDonald's that they put out is again a very big part of why they want to go with this project. But to touch on a few other things about the site that I believe we're improving, Stephanie had mentioned the new sidewalk connection that will come from the public sidewalk north of the site on 159th Street. So that we feel is a big addition to allow those that come from there to have a easier and safer route from that sidewalk to the restaurant. So that site is fully ADA compliant. So whether you're in a wheelchair, crutches, anything like that, it's a much safer route to the restaurant. Some other improvements around the site, unfortunately, I don't have any additional pictures of it, but there were some small drainage issues. I'm not sure if any of you have been to the site when it's raining or after a rain event, but there is a curb outlet that goes to a sewer that's located in the Portillo's drive-through, which from what I've heard from some of the staff through our review has been known to not work very efficiently, and there's plenty of ponding that occurs. So in order to take care of that, we're proposing to add an inlet over the sewer that runs along there to take care of that. And other than that, I think the biggest thing, again, like Stephanie had mentioned, is the angled parking to increase the safety of not only the pedestrians walking along the site, but also the drivers to indicate them counterclockwise around the site. So I think those are kind of our major design highlights besides the building itself. So if there's any questions regarding things that Stephanie said or otherwise, we'd be happy to answer those for you.
Sure. Do you have further presentation after that, or?
No, I actually just thought of one other item. One of the items that we are requesting is the reduction in the parking spaces from the code, and we just wanted to confirm with you that the amount of parking that is being proposed is we're very comfortable with that number. It's not close to any number where we'd be concerned about the amount of parking. We're very comfortable with what's being proposed.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. So with that, we can start down on.
Hey, Paula.
Do you want to see that again?
Paula? Yeah, can we have that over here? I've got some questions later on.
So I just want to start down on the far end here. Tim, if you had any questions, comments, want to run through anything?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Several questions, thank you. Thanks for being as prepared as you have been. My first question is regarding the project at 171st and Harlem that we approved back in May, I believe, of this year. No construction has started on that. Is there an issue from our standpoint? I'm saying us, the town, or is it McDonald's?
Yeah, there's no issue. We have building permits have been issued, and construction is slated to go in March.
Okay. When would construction be slated to go in on this project?
We would expect that it would go the following March.
So we're looking basically a year out?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It's the same, and part of the reason it's the same operator. So, to have two projects for one operator in 1 year becomes
Expensive,
more
sure.
difficult and expensive for them.
Next question is, why are we deviating from the site plan and the look of the McDonald's, which was the newest and most modern look when it was presented back in April, May, to this plan here?
Yeah, obviously, they don't necessarily want to make them identical, and this is still part of and one of the foremost prototypes that McDonald's has. So that they wanted to have a slight differentiation between them, but in terms of the efficiency of the drive-through, the layout, all that's still incorporated into this particular building.
Is the inside being remodeled as well, or just the outside?
Yeah, both the inside and the outside will be done.
Okay. One of the questions I have, I'm looking at this, and the thin set brick, Is this the thin brick that you're going to be putting over the,
That is on the.
or is this?
Yeah,
this
that's
or
that
this?
area right there.
This area here, is that the same that's going to be here, or is this just gray?
Yeah,
Gray brick,
that's just going to be a different color brick, right?
okay?
The-
brand walls are the tile, the black tile.
Where the M logo is, that's where the,
That's where this is going?
yes.
So what is all this? You're just going to paint the store? Or is there it says something about a thin set brick. I'm just trying to, I don't see a sample of a thin set brick on here, unless I'm missing it. I apologize.
So the surrounds are about around the drive-through windows. That is just painted brick, because in order to take down some of the red mansard roof, I have to do thin brick to replace it. So that's the thin brick that we're doing. I can't really picture it right here, but the play place has reveals and that kind of stuff that'll happen because of the red mansard roof that comes down on the angle on the existing building. So that'll be replaced with brick. The tile is really this. That is the brand walls and over the doors.
Right, but what's going on in the majority of the sides?
That's painted brick.
So it's just the current brick painted?
Yes.
Okay. What happened to the big arches on the top? On the other plan on 171st and Harlem have a couple of those large arches that were incorporated in the scheme of the store.
Yeah, it's just a different design element, between, this one and the other one. That's it.
Okay. On the drive-through, on the new store that we approved, I think you're going to have the roofs over the menu boards I don't see that on this plan here either.
Yeah.
That's something I'm assuming that could be added?
It's a different, and after, we discussed, I took a look at it. The one that's proposed still has an overhang to protect folks going through the drive-through. It just, it's not as pronounced as on the other one, but it's still there.
Do you have a picture of it? I don't see a picture of it. in
Yeah,
any
it
of
should
the
be
plans.
part of your packet.
It wasn't a packet, as he said, it's not very pronounced.
Yeah,
It
I
still
don't-
extends over.
Are we talking about this?
Yep.
We're talking about that little?
So if you envision the other one, when you're pulling in, you have this big swoosh.
Yes.
So that is the cantilever over. So it's this whole length.
This is where the car pulls in to
Yeah.
order. So you're going to have protection for the customer when you're ordering. Okay. And this one here, that's the other menu board that you're just driving by as you're...
No, that's the straight on view of it. So one is from the side.
Ah, gotcha.
one is
Okay.
from the
All right. Okay. Will the M's be the same size as the other store? Are we asking for the same size for
Yes.
consistency? Menu boards are different because of the different look, I take it? Or the menu boards the same? Because I was looking at the plans of the other one that we approved, and I thought we approved a little bit larger menu board on that one, or am I just mistaken on that?
Yeah, I think these are the ones that are now going to be digital, correct? So they might be a little bit less than.
A little bit smaller than what was
prior
approved
ones.
on House
Right, so
21st?
if I remember correctly, when we first approached staff for the other project, we had the 4-panel menu boards that were oversized compared to village code. But during the process, McDonald's rolled out these digital menu boards nationwide. So we changed it. It might have been after the workshop, but we resubmitted with the digital menu boards and had those approved as part of that project.
So we'll have the same menu boards at both
They
stores?
will be the same.
Okay, okay.
And if I heard you correctly, they're actually smaller than what we went through the
Correct.
site plan approval for?
Correct.
Okay.
And also note that the other McDonald's project came before we adopted the new sign regulations.
I
for
understand,
menu.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The only other question I have, which may fly in the face of what the job that the staff has done, do you believe that you need another play place sign on the south elevation?
We do. One of the, obviously being McDonald's, it's a place that's really dependent on people's ability to view it and then make the decision to come in. So that additional item, and considering the number of McDonald's that don't have play places is, has changed over the years. The fact that it does have a play place is something that is more, at this time, more out of the ordinary than at other locations. So your combination of the fact that we are something that really bases a lot of its business on drive-by traffic, and the fact that this is something that's more novel in terms of other locations, we believe that that it's really necessary for for the site.
So the original plan, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have one in the north.
Yeah, just
And the north face is 159th, correct? So no one coming from the south would see that there's a play place. I mean, the sign is not, and I'm probably on the minority on this, so I'm just asking if it's something that you think would be better for the store and for the operator. And now's the time in the workshop to ask about that. So I'm just asking, is it fair to ask for a play place on the south end, which I know a lot of traffic comes from that side too for that store, I'm sure.
Yeah, obviously, our preference would be, to have it for the reasons I mentioned. Whenever we come before a commission, we try to limit as much as we can, deviations. But if it's something that the commission would support, it's definitely something that we could, we would want.
And the only reason I ask is because you guys, in these designs and the other design, it's very concise, it's very consistent, very clean look versus what is there now and versus some of the stores that are in that plaza right now that I think staff has been working on. And the Aldi was a perfect example. The Sam's was a perfect example. So I believe those were my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions down here, Commissioner Gatto? Great.
So I had a couple of questions here, and then we should probably track back through the open items and make sure that we are covering all of them. And this is one of the open items, but I had a question on the corner mulch that we talked about, and I was listening for it. Not sure if you covered this in your staff report, but I believe in the Commissioner Croner keeps talking about the other store, but that was also a question. And then afterwards, I think recently you mentioned that there was a different approach taken.
Yeah, they actually were able to do landscaping at the other site. In that corner where they had originally proposed the loose gravel type filler, and then we gave them these same pictures of the cobbles and the block and said, no, something like this that's set there, that's not going to be a loose material that goes into the parking lot. And when we got the building permit review plans, we actually saw landscaping there. So hopefully no one's going to be driving through it, and you guys have the turning radius analysis all good for the deliveries that are going to come through there. But we always prefer to see landscaping first, and then something that won't be, an eyesore or a maintenance issue.
Okay, so the conditions and the dimensions for this one, how similar or different are they? And would we be in the same situation? And potential for having actual landscaping here as well?
Yeah, I can answer that. So compared to the other one, I think this one was a lot tighter around that corner. And I believe it's just that dimension from the most southernmost part of that landscape or that mulched island to the landscape island to the east is much tighter than it was on the other. So again, this is mostly a concern for delivery trucks and their radius. Any customers in standard cars shouldn't have any issues with that. So with it being a little bit tighter, from our analysis, the entire back end of a semi-truck would be coming over pretty much that entire thing. So I know on the other one we were able to, I think, kind of get away with planting still being there, and on this one we don't feel that it's as beneficial of a situation. So And I think it kind of went out the window that we had already had these two other options instead of the rock mulch. So we'll make sure that obviously that's updated if we confirm that plantings are more than likely to be kind of trampled by these trucks.
Okay. And just to make sure we're talking about apples and apples here, I think on the other restaurant, we actually weren't talking about the island over by the signboards. We were talking about the one that would be at the turn of the building, right?
Yeah, it would
On-
be
and which-
after you order.
On this one, we don't have an island.
Yeah, it's around the other side. Yeah, you're right. It's the southeast island on the other side. It was as you would round the corner to pay after you order.
Right. And for this site plan.
We don't have one
we don't
on
have
the corner in
an
that
equivalent island there,
Mhm.
right? It was
Yeah.
not the thought that one was necessary on this?
Yeah, this one, it would be really hard to put something there. You'd have the same issue where it would be something that people would most likely
It would
just
be
be
jutting
driving
out.
over.
I get that.
And they've done some major improvements to the actual traffic flow of this site because it's all going to be just one-way counterclockwise since they angled the parking spaces here. So it's not really a concern as much because all of the cars are going to be essentially going the same direction. You're not going to get, two cars trying to go opposite ways in this particular site,
Yeah.
except for on the east side a little bit.
Right. So with the reduction in the number of parking spaces, were there any traffic surveys or you stated in your presentation that you felt very comfortable with the number and just on the face of it and having taken my kids there many times, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just curious whether you've had any studies or any objective basis for that.
In terms of parking, we did not do a specific study for this site, but just from experience at other locations, just so much of the business comes through the drive-through, even in a situation where there's a play place, that having parking spaces in the 50s is very comfortable. We're comfortable with parking spaces in the 40s. So having that much, we don't, it's not something where we even thought that it was necessary to analyze it because it's well within the range that we're more than comfortable.
Okay. And because we're going to angle parking, is it fair to say that increases the overall depth of the spaces as well?
They typically are deeper.
Okay.
You tend to yield less spaces when you do that, but it improves the safety and the traffic flow of the site.
Can I just say one thing to
Absolutely.
your thought on that? One of the safety valves we have with this store too is that it's adjacent to that large, massive parking lot of the shopping center. I'm not so much concerned that McDonald's is saying, hey, we're comfortable with it. It's more, what are we comfortable with? What is our code? To me, the safety valve is we've got 100 spaces probably within, 100 feet of this parking space,
Yeah.
or of the end of the lot here. So that's more what I would be going for rather than saying whether or not McDonald's is comfortable with going for it. No disrespect, sir, but from our standpoint.
Yeah, I would agree, and without getting into the details of shared parking lot agreements or anything like that, I would generally agree with that. The only time I've seen concerns is on like a Thursday or Friday evening when Portillo's is overflowing and McDonald's is overflowing. That's about the only time I see that we get into heavy traffic there. So those are the, I want to clarify what I think I heard. For the most part, except where the mansard roofs were, where you're going to have to replace some brick, we're essentially talking about retaining the existing building material, painting it, fresh coat of paint on there, and then in certain areas, we're adding a wrap, so to speak, for drive-throughs, et cetera, and vertical. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
With respect to Commissioner Croner's point on the play place, the possibility of an additional play place sign on the south side, for my part, I do like that the signage here is more modest and consistent now. It's understated, so I would also be agreeable to be considering one on the south side as well. Although I know it's additional signage, I think that it does actually improve the site, improve the usage. So, if there are no additional comments, I think we could just kind of track through all the open items and see where we stand on those.
Would you like me to go through them?
I'm
or-
sorry.
That's okay.
I probably should have been more explicit in
That's
that.
right.
Stephanie, could you
Sure.
lead us through the open items?
Sure. Again, number 1 was considering a substantial deviation to allow the site plan modifications for the second drive-through lane. I didn't hear any opposition toward that. Sounds like it's a good operational change for the site, and hopefully people can get their food fast. Number 2 was an exception for the number of required parking spaces. And just to be clear, it's mentioned in the staff report, it is a 10-space deficit that they're at per our code. And we discussed how McDonald's operates typically between 40-something and 50-something spaces. So the petitioner has worked with that number successfully before. And also it's part of a larger shopping center, so you do have some adjacent parking, quite a bit actually. So there are options for if the site does become very full with parking, there are options for people to park elsewhere and still be able to access the site. Number 3 was modifying the landscape bed to the east of the north parking road. That was that little triangle. If the
And
petitioner...
to that point,
Uh-huh.
you're right, we didn't explicitly talk about that
Mhm.
one. We could just run through for a quick consensus. I would agree with staff's recommendation on that point.
Okay.
And if the petitioner's agreeable, whichever way they were.
Okay. Agreeable? All right. Perfect. Number 4, also that landscaping question about the loose rock mulch being replaced. It sounds like landscaping will not be feasible there, but considering something that's set in mortar like those granite cobbles or the Belgian block, is that something we can consider? All
I
right.
think we felt comfortable there as well.
Okay, great. I think it is important to have some sort of island there just to really define the drive-through area. If you've ever been in the drive-through, the worst thing is when someone accidentally, maybe not, cuts in front of you, and something like this could have prevented that. And then,
Especially at that stage of the queue.
Exactly, yeah.
As we just discussed with the other one, probably not a concern.
yep, they'll just have to fight for that merge now. Number 5 was the consideration of a substantial deviation to allow 1 additional wall sign. This one, I think we do need to clarify where we're going with it. Are we okay with 1? It sounds like we might even want a second one, so we would be a deviation for 2 wall signs potentially.
Yeah, so I think it's worth, Commissioner Croner stated his point, and so did I. We can run down there. Yeah. So I would hesitate to say we want 1. I would be open if the petitioner would be looking for another. Is that, any comments on that? Okay, looks like we have consensus on that point.
And we would have to evaluate the sign face area for that as well to make sure that we wouldn't need an exception also for the sign face area also if they add it to a certain side. So we would just need the information from the petitioner, and you could consider it at your public hearing. The way we noticed it, I believe, is any related exceptions.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. So for argument's sake, heading into the public hearing, any revision of the staff report, barring any, large increase in the overall square footage and having an exception in square footage, just having an additional sign, I don't think would be objectionable.
If we enter into the territory of having a lot more square footage, that would be of concern.
Okay. And number 6 was considering a substantial deviation to allow that taller M arch sign. It's 6 inches taller than we allow by code for this size of building. And I didn't hear any objections for that particular one. As the petitioner mentioned, it will match the size of the M's on the other location. I think that's important to know. And the last one was the height of the menu boards. And while we were here looking through some things, I found the sign plan, and it actually is a measurement from the just the darker gray part. That lighter gray concrete base was not part of the measurement, so we would need the total measurement from grade unless they're able to make the whole thing a maximum of 7 feet from grade. So I need to know how tall that base component is to get you the final measurement.
Just from the drawing, it looks like some sort of concrete footing.
Yeah.
Right? So
Most
4,
likely.
Yeah, I believe
6 inches maybe.
4 inches exposed, I just don't know for sure.
All right, 4 inches plus whatever spacing. You know
Yeah,
all
plus
that.
the ink bolts and then.
Yeah. I need the total from the ground up, and we have that for the next staff report. Then we
Okay.
can get you the actual specific.
So the difference would potentially be going from roughly 4 3/4 inches to maybe, almost even a foot.
Almost.
Right? Okay. So kind of a big
Potentially.
difference there. We'll see
Yeah.
where that comes in.
Again, it will be the same as the other menu boards.
That's what I was going to ask you. The menu boards,
Right?
height's the same? They're the same height? Okay.
And to that end, even though it might be more than allowed, the other one, it would match the other one, and the other one was kind of pre-existing before the sign ordinance was changed.
I think we actually had an exception for the size and the height of the other one, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that one was an exception as well.
Or it was a variance, because that one wasn't in a PUD. So
Okay.
there was a variance for those specific ones there.
In any event, we
Mhm.
discussed that one, and
Yes.
there's consistency there anyway.
So that's all I have. So our petitioners to do for next week would be to get us a revised landscape plan that shows those 2 revisions to the landscape plan, and then to get us an idea of whether or not they would propose an additional wall sign, an updated elevation showing that wall sign, and make sure that we have all the correct calculations for the sign.
Okay?
And then also the total height for the menu boards.
Sounds good. It sounds like we went through everything and it looks pretty good. We don't appear to be too far apart on anything, really. So, the next step in this process would be a public hearing, January 18th. Is that the right date?
Yep, the 18th. Sorry,
Okay.
I have a fancy slide for that. There we go.
And has that's already been noticed then?
It has.
sir?
Yep.
Great.
So we've got public hearing here, 7 p.m. on the 18th.
Sounds good. I have no further questions. If I don't want to hold you guys up anymore.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming out. Looks good.
Hey, Bob. I will not be at that meeting, the 18th. I'm letting you know ahead of time. I'm out of time.
I'll still include you in the email.
Thank you, Bob.
But if I don't get an answer, I won't get an
That's
answer.
why. Yeah, would you give that, if you wouldn't mind giving it to me, I'm trying to forget.
Yeah. I don't know, we work with Jane every other time, so I don't know which is. Good luck.
the board. Yeah,
Right.
on the storage piece.
Okay, we don't have any additional items on the agenda for this evening. Good of the order, do we have anything?
A couple things. We are saying goodbye to Stephanie tomorrow, so if they wanted to stop by. We always do well with food. Back to the department. We're in the midst of budget. That's probably mostly what I've been concentrating on. Trying to get our budgets in for all 3 departments. So that's coming up. Nothing, I guess, overly earth-shattering. One of the capital improvements I'm asking for is a revision of the reception area over by the building department. Because as you know, we're going through new software, and with that, I'm trying to get the payment of building permit fees back there as it is now. If any of you ever had to get a building permit, come back there, get the building permit, then you got to go around the front to pay. Sometimes that's in the dead of winter. This way, everything can be done one-stop shop and a lot of things electronically. My goal is to have online payments, online permitting applications, and those kinds of things. And in doing that, I want to expand our reception area and ability to serve the public a little bit easier. So, we have final interviews with some building officials tomorrow. So, hoping that I can get a building official in. Been working on some planners as well. So hopefully we'll have that here shortly. We will be meeting with Woodman's. They've encountered some troubled soils and troubled engineering out on the site, and that's not new news to us. Walmart had similar issues. So, they haven't been, rushing to apply. They're still interested in coming. They have their due diligence period is still open for a couple more months, so we're going to be meeting with them and see if we can do some value engineering with them. Another thing I'm working on is a fee analysis study because I think our fees are fairly low for permitting, and doing that as part of the budget process as well. See if we can't get our revenues up a little bit. But being mindful of our residents. I mean, we're just looking at sort of the larger projects and making sure that we're being made whole on some of these expenses. Working on a legacy amendment still. As you know, we've got some issues with our legacy code. So trying to work through those. Probably the biggest issue is our heritage sites and our districting. So we've run into a couple problems with some of our older buildings, like the old Chicks. Some of you might know which building that is. I think it's 17609. So right now, because of the district it's in, any remodeling that's greater than 50% of the value of the property would have to be converted to residential. And there's been a lot of commercial interest on that. So we're looking at modifying the code, so maybe some of those areas could be looked at as mixed uses rather than just straight residential. Look at maybe expanding some of the districts as they are. So that's kind of a bigger project, so we're hoping to get that done sometime in the next year.
I believe some of those recommendations came out of the Citizens Advisory
Yes, it did.
Group
Absolutely.
last year as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have a new IT guy that should be appointed at our next board meeting. And so I'm in the midst, I think I talked to you last time about software is probably another #1 issue for me, all new permitting software. So I was going to have our final interviews here, and I'm going to push it off a couple weeks so I can incorporate our new IT guy. I feel he's close enough to being on board. It's probably not going to be his #1 priority, but I'd like to get his involvement since he will be here.
So we have another IT guy?
We're going to get an IT director. That's up for appointment at the next board meeting.
Steve Clemmer, is he still here? Steve Clemmer, is he still there?
It's a new employee.
I'm
Steve is
asking,
still here.
is Steve still
He's
here?
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think, were you saying we're doubling the staff?
So I was wondering, yeah.
Okay.
It's a new staff. I mean, there's three people in IT right now. The public hearing signs that we talked about, they're supposed to be delivered today, weren't they? So I don't know, maybe by tomorrow. So we'll have at the ground, we can pound these signs into the ground. Barb has volunteered to go out with a sledgehammer. She said she used to do this with her real estate signs.
Or something else.
So kind of on a minor, we've had a lot of requests for food trucks, so we're starting to do a little research on that to see, some regulations for that. That's
That's
most
an
of it.
interesting one. I know
Yeah.
from working downtown Chicago.
Yeah.
I would hope that as we explore that, we don't try to over-regulate and kill the possibility of a thriving business.
There's always an interplay between the interest of our local brick and mortar businesses and yet trying to cash in on some of the cachet of having food trucks in a community, which brings its own kind of interest, so.
I
right
saw
now we
Lucky
do-
Dog has a food truck now.
Pardon?
Yeah, I was
Lucky Dog, I saw it in their parking lot. I went by the 171st the other day.
Yeah.
I was just
They've
going
got
to
a
say
food
that we can't make the assumption that those interests are mutually exclusive either. Lucky Dog is a perfect example of a brick and mortar that also has a food truck.
It's one of those subjects like parking ratios that, everyone has an opinion. So, anything you want to add, or?
The fences and the cell going to board.
Yeah, going to board.
Mhm.
Yeah, fences are going to board, but we pulled back, I'm glad you brought that up, Stephanie. There's some new legislation working its way through the Senate on the small cells, and so our attorney has suggested that we hold off right now. He's gonna kind of re-look at it to see, he doesn't want us to go to board, get a whole new code done, and then find out, a month later that the law has changed. And apparently, they have a fairly strong lobby, the telecommunication industry. I've always equated it to the tobacco industry, fairly strong. And so the language that he's read or shown me pretty much takes away all of our powers for regulating. So this is the first time he brought it up to us today. So he's going to do some investigating, going to talk with the board to see whether they want to move forward and put it in force with the thought that we could turn around in a couple months and change it. We really don't have anybody pressing us right now, so it's not an issue. So we'll see. I don't have an answer on what we're going to do yet. Good call. Anything else?
Just want to say one more time, thank you guys for being such great commissioners, and it's been a real pleasure working here. We have amazing staff. I hope you get to know more of them and do some great things here. I'll still be watching. I am a resident, as you know, and I do live near Oak Park Avenue, so I do want to keep my eyes on what's going on in the downtown area, as well as all the other awesome projects we have going on and whatever else pops up. I'll be keeping an eye on it and hopefully seeing you all around town, maybe in Menards or something, who knows, anywhere else, Garrett. And just thank you guys for being so supportive. It's been great.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I have a couple of words here. First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Stephanie. You certainly made my time on the commission very easy and informative as well. I appreciate all the hard work and very thorough work that you've done, professional work. So for my part, I'm sad to see you go, but again, happy to see you have great opportunities. Any other comments from the commissioners?
We miss you.
Yeah, done a great
Great.
job, really have.
And
Maybe see her in the audience?
Yeah.
Or-
They're very lucky.
yeah, Stephanie, I appreciate your preparedness and your professionalism at each and every meeting. So
Yeah.
good luck on your new job, your new adventure. We'll miss you.
The best.
So I did have one other item. I just wanted to toss out there because I know the timing on it is very short, and that has to do with the RFQ for the Tinley Park Mental Health Center. I just want to state, from my part, that I personally have a lot of concerns about the proposed time, or not the proposed timeline, the timeline for the RFQ. I went back through it again myself, and the more I look at it, it's impractical. And I sincerely hope that the village board considers pushing it out further. I don't know how many of you have taken a look at the timeline for the RFQ, but it was issued midday on December 15th. And it requires written intent back from people, firms who are going to submit a bid by the 22nd of December, which was a half-day for the village. So really about 4 working day turnaround, 4 to 5 days. And with the timing, with the holidays, Christmas and New Year's, there's really only, I calculate about 22 working days for a firm to submit questions in writing, and then 27 working days to submit final proposals. I don't know how the board ever approved this. I will tell you for my part that I think it's impractical, and I have no idea who they think is going to bid on that. When you look at the requirements A through K, I'll just point out I is market research to support the development proposal. As we've seen from some of the developments we've seen up here, market research takes a long time. So I really don't know where the board's going with this, and I sincerely hope that the board takes another look at this. So that's my 2 cents here, considering a master plan, whatever it looks like, is going to come before the Plan Commission. I hope that what we do see, that it's worthy.
Can I ride your coattail on that for a second?
Absolutely.
And don't get into political back and forth here in the town very often, but Ken showed me that tonight, and I'm amazed that the town could put something out and ask for a bid proposal back, and the developer has no idea what the costs are, what it's going to cost him or her, nor do they have an idea for sure. They've got some 2014 figures on what the cleanup cost is. Guys, and I'm right with Ken, and again, I know this is not our prerogative to issue an opinion on right now, but I'm doing it because we've got a little bit of a public forum here, but to even put that together and ask with a tight time frame and not even have a cost, that's the kind of business I'm in, not development like this, but if somebody gives me a project, the first question I'm going to ask is, what are my costs? And if we don't even have those to give this person, how can we expect, and how can a responsible developer provide us with a proposal in whole? I mean, we're going to end up with the same shenanigans that happened with, and I don't know it all, so please don't, probably shouldn't say it, but with whatever happened with the firehouse, where we're taking bids from people and we don't know what the costs are, what we're going to spend on it. We're doing this ass backwards. We truly are, and I apologize for the vulgarity, but this is not a responsible way to run these things. And I told Commissioner Stanton, I told the Chairman Shaw, I said, any responsible party cannot put forth a solid proposal. And again, we as a town should not be putting that out if we don't have all our cards in place. We're doomed for failure by doing it that way. So I would echo what the chairman is saying, and I know you guys are right there with these guys, the board members here, and if you can just, again, I would echo what Ken is saying, that have some dire concerns, and let's pull this back and rethink this thing. First, let's get our costs and find out what is going on so we can give it to the developer, and then let them come in with a responsible plan that incorporates their cost, because what's going to happen is we're going to take a developer, we're going to choose one, they're going to put a price out there at $50 million, and they have no idea what the costs are, and then the overruns are going to be astronomical. Why? Because we didn't prepare ourselves or the developer to put something that he or she could put together and give us a responsible plan. So, sorry.
No, I appreciate
Not on a
you
pulpit.
chiming in there, and to that end, I just mentioned one of the RFQ requirements. Another one is previous relevant experience for projects of similar size and scope, including budgets. Well, to Commissioner Croner's point, how does anybody realistically know what the budget is?
And another one is a brief statement on your ability to acquire the property. You know, that goes without saying. If you don't know how much it is, how can you talk about financing? So I think that's enough soapbox for now. Thank you for hearing that out. If there are no other questions or comments, we will now receive comments from the public, if there is any. Thank you. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Stan, second Commissioner Gray. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.